So, if you've ever played around with a large language model, you've probably had this exact experience, right? You type in a question, you get a kind of mediocre answer, but then you tweak just a couple of words, maybe rephrase it slightly, and bam, suddenly you get the perfect response. It really does feel like magic, doesn't it? Like you've just stumbled upon the secret password that unlocks the AI's real power.
But what if it's not just a guessing game? What if there's an actual science to finding that magic word? What if we could really get under the hood and understand exactly how our prompts are steering these incredibly complex systems? Well, that's the big question we're going to unravel right here, right now.
All right, let's get right into it. Because it turns out, controlling an AI, it's not magic at all. Nope, it's actually a pretty fascinating challenge in engineering. And to really wrap our heads around it, we're going to borrow a really cool idea from a totally different field, something called control theory. So, what is control theory? Well, at its core, it's the science of steering things. I mean, think about what it takes to keep a massive airplane stable during rough turbulence, or how you manage an entire city's power grid without it collapsing. These are super complex, dynamic systems, and control theory is what gives us the mathematical tools to make them behave predictably and, safely.
And this is where things get really interesting because we see this fundamental clash of two different worlds. See, traditional control theory, it's all about precise math to guarantee an outcome. I mean, you definitely don't want your airplane's autopilot improvising, right? But AI? It's basically a professional improv machine. It's built on finding patterns in data, not on hard mathematical guarantees. And that right there is exactly why trying to control it is such a unique and tricky problem.
So, where do we even start trying to control these things? Well, it actually begins way before we, the users, ever type a single prompt. Let's take a look at how developers try to build the steering wheel and the brakes right into the AI itself.
And this is such a crucial point to understand. Safety and control, they aren't just features tacked on at the end. Not at all. They are fundamental, woven right into the fabric of the entire creation process for any large language model.
So, how exactly do developers build in those controls? You can pretty much picture it like an assembly line, broken down into 3 main stages, and each one of these stages is a critical opportunity to shape and guide how the final model is going to behave.
First up is pre-training. This is where the model essentially swallows a library the size of the entire internet, just learning the raw patterns of human language. Then you've got fine-tuning. Think of this like sending the model to a specialized graduate school to hone very specific skills. And finally, you have the deployment stage, where developers add those last-minute guardrails, things like content filters, right before they release it out into the wild.
Now, during that fine-tuning stage, developers use this really key technique called RLHF. The best way to think about it? It's kind of like training a puppy. You have humans who give the AI a virtual treat for good answers, and, well, they withhold it for bad ones. After seeing millions of these examples, the model starts to learn what we humans find helpful and safe. In fact, this is the very process that turned the raw, untamed power of GPT 3.5 into the friendly, conversational ChatGPT that so many of us use today.
Okay, but the developer controls, that's only half the story. Because once the model is built and it's in our hands, the power really shifts to us. So how do we, the users, take the wheel and actually steer the conversation? This, my friends, is the art and the science of prompt engineering.
And this isn't just about asking a simple question. It's a whole process, a cycle, really. You design a prompt, you look at what the AI gives you back, and then you refine your instructions based on that output. You're not just a passenger here. You are actively steering this machine. And here is a key insight, a really big one. Forget about finding that single, perfect magic prompt. The real power is in the conversation. Each turn you take lets you add more context, clarify what you mean, and steer the dialogue exactly where you want it to go. I mean, think about a doctor diagnosing a rare disease. It's always a back and forth, a series of questions, not just one single question. This conversational approach leads to some really clever techniques, like something called progressive hint prompting. The core idea here is to use the AI's own mistakes to your advantage. It's brilliant. So, watch this. The AI's first answer is wrong. So what does the user do? They take that wrong answer and feed it right back as a hint, saying something like, the answer is close to this number. It's basically like telling the AI, hey, you're getting warmer, and gently guiding it onto the correct path. Another super powerful method is called least to most prompting, and this one essentially forces the AI to show its work. So instead of just demanding the final answer right away, You first ask it to break the complex problem down into simpler steps. Then you have it solve each of those little steps one by one. It's a fantastic way of enforcing a more logical, methodical thinking process on the model.
So, okay, we've got developer controls and we've got user controls. It sounds like we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, right? Well, the reality is our tools for controlling these things are still surprisingly blunt.
Yeah, this quote from the Center for Security and Emerging Technology just captures the current situation perfectly. They say today's techniques are more like sledgehammers than scalpels. Think about that. If you try to prevent an AI from generating violent content, you might also, completely unintentionally, make it refuse to even describe the plot of an R-rated movie. The controls, they often lack that surgical precision we need.
And you know, achieving that perfect, airtight control is incredibly difficult for a bunch of reasons. For one, with open source models, anyone can just download them and rip out the safety features. Then there's the fact that we don't have mathematical guarantees of stability like we do for an airplane. Plus, users are constantly finding these clever jailbreaks to get around the built-in restrictions. And at the end of the day, these are just immensely complex systems that can still behave in really surprising, unpredictable ways.
But here's the twist. Despite all of those challenges, the sledgehammers, the unpredictability, the actual degree of control we can exert with just a few well-chosen words is honestly truly remarkable. Yeah, research has shown something absolutely fascinating. You can take an output that the AI thinks is incredibly unlikely, like the bottom of the barrel, least probable thing it could say, and with just a short, optimized prompt, you can actually force it to become the most likely outcome. It's kind of mind-blowing.
So, just how powerful is this effect? Well, one study found something just incredible. In over 97% of cases, they could force the correct next word simply by using an optimized prompt of 10 words or less. Just think about that for a second. 10 words are often enough to find the exact right lever to pull to steer a system that's been built on literally trillions of data points. So this all leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? We have these incredibly powerful tools for steering AI. They're surprisingly effective, and yet they remain imperfect. They lack those hard mathematical guarantees. So if perfect, predictable control is impossible, what does it truly mean to build and deploy AI systems that we can actually trust?